Alright, we're going to show where the romance in Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, goes off the rails, and what we can do to get it back on a good track. First, let's look at how this romance is set up. Here's the original scene of the first time Anakin and Padme see each other after 10 years apart.
It has been far too long, Master Kenobi. Annie? My goodness, you've grown.
So have you. Grown more beautiful, I mean. Well, for a senator, I mean.
Annie, you'll always be that little boy I knew on Tatooine.
So, in this scene, we have Padme treating Anakin like he's still a little kid. She even says that he'll always be that little boy she met on Tatooine. I don't feel this is consistent, though, with how she treats him later that night. I mean, while Padme is sleeping, Anakin reveals to Obi-Wan that she asked him to use her as bait to catch the person trying to assassinate her. But why would she ask Anakin if she still looks at him like he's just a little boy? Why would she give him that responsibility? When she was planning to take back Naboo in The Phantom Menace, she specifically left Anakin out of the plan. So if he's still a little boy to her, even 10 years later, I don't feel that she would give him a responsibility such as helping her trap an assassin. After all this is out of the way though, and Padme has to go to Naboo to hide, Padme does notice that Anakin isn't a little boy anymore.
I haven't worked for a year to defeat the Military Creation Act, to not be here when its fate is decided.
Sometimes we must let go of our pride and do what is requested of us.
Anakin, you've grown up.
All mentors have a way of seeing more of our faults than we would like. It's the only way we grow.
I know.
Anakin, don't try to grow up too fast.
So the setup for the romance here is that she starts out seeing him as a little boy, then realizes that he actually has grown up. Now, let's look at how we can alter this setup just a bit.
It has been far too long, Master Kenobi.
Our presence here will be invisible, milady, I can assure you.
Okay, so instead of Padme looking at Anakin as if he's still a little boy, what we're doing here is just having Padme pretty much ignore him, as if he's not important to her. The nice thing about going this route is that after Padme leaves the room, this route is strengthened by a line of dialogue from Anakin.
Miss bustin' with happiness seeing you again, Annie.
She hardly even recognized me, Jar Jar. I've thought about her every day since we've parted, and she's forgotten me completely.
If we go this route, then it appears that Anakin is unimportant to Padme to start with, and what this allows us to do is build that importance as the movie goes along. Alright, so let's get to the beginning of the romance, which starts on the transport to Naboo. This is a good start to the romance. Padme is curious about whether Jedi are allowed to love, and Anakin offers his justification for bending the Jedi code a bit so that he can say that he's allowed to fall in love. This is a good bit of writing here. The next scene comes after they land on Naboo. Padme talks about her career in politics, and that's all.
I was relieved when my 2 terms were up. But when the Queen asked me to serve as senator, I couldn't refuse her.
I agree with her. I think the Republic needs you. I'm glad that you chose to serve.
Upon arriving on Naboo, we have Padme, with Anakin in tow, meeting with the current queen of Naboo. I love this scene. We get some good information here, such as seeing the new queen, seeing the same governor, and hearing the same governor tell us that Newt Gunray not only didn't kiss his trade franchise goodbye,
I think you can kiss your trade franchise goodbye.
but he's looking to align the Trade Federation with the Separatists, giving the Separatists a strong support system. In terms of Anakin and Padme's budding relationship, we see that Padme already has Anakin whipped.
Excuse me. I'm in charge of security here, milady.
And this is my home. I know it very well. That is why we're here. I think it would be wise if you took advantage of my knowledge in this instance.
Sorry, milady.
She likes being in control, and Anakin is okay with that. He learns very quickly not to argue with her. Sounds like a typical romance to me.
Taking a trip to Whipville.
Next is the scene in which the structure of the romance begins to fall apart. While at the lake, After talking about sand,
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Anakin goes in for a kiss, and Padme goes with it until she suddenly decides that it's not a good idea. I guess the idea behind this, in terms of story, was to put an obstacle in the way of their budding romance, so it can only happen later rather than sooner. My question would be, if an obstacle must be recognized by Padme now to obstruct the romance, then why have the first kiss happen so soon? Why not put that off for a while and allow Anakin and Padme to spend more time with each other before having that first kiss? And actually, Padme's rejection of Anakin makes their next scene together look a bit inconsistent. They're in a field, talking at first, then playing and rolling around. Now, you'd think that after he kissed her and she ended up rejecting him, that she'd want to keep him at arm's length, or he'd want to be a bit distant from her, still feeling the sting of that rejection. It just feels like mixed messages from both sides. Later that evening, Anakin and Padme have dinner together, and she allows Anakin to force feed her. And the next scene, with the two sitting by the fireplace, is simply awful, as it only contributes to making Anakin appear sincerely creepy while begging Padme to love him. And while she does admit she has feelings for him, she quickly convinces him that they can't be in a relationship, which stops the romance cold.
I can't. We can't. It's just not possible.
Anything is possible, Padme. Listen to me.
No, you listen. We live in a real world. Come back to it. You're studying to become a Jedi. I'm a senator.
Also, Anakin's dialogue is so atrocious here that I wouldn't be surprised if Natalie Portman didn't have to be told to appear uncomfortable. On a side note, Attack of the Clones is a great movie to show how good editing can make all the difference. I mean, keep a solid scene with good dialogue.
Excuse me. I'm in charge of security here, milady.
And this is my home. I know it very well. That is why we're here. I think it would be wise if you took advantage of my knowledge in this instance.
Sorry, milady.
While removing an unnecessary scene with terrible dialogue, and the editor can make the writer look that much better. Anyway, the way Anakin and Padme interact with each other on the balcony the next morning feels so inconsistent with their agreement to not get romantic. I mean, Anakin's second line of dialogue in this scene has him returning to creepy mode.
Don't go.
I don't want to disturb you.
Your presence is soothing.
You had another nightmare last night.
Jedi don't have nightmares.
It makes the romance feel so disjointed, like the scenes aren't in the proper order. Anakin and Padme are all over the map, and the storytelling of their romance is simply incoherent. So after Anakin is rejected twice, he goes to Tatooine to rescue his mother from the Sand People. But his yearning for love is rejected for a third time, because his mother dies on him. And the situation gets worse after Anakin confesses to Padme that he killed the Sand People.
They're dead. Every single one of them. And not just the men, but the women. And the children, too. They're like animals, and I slaughtered them like animals.
He's an animal!
An animal! An animal!
Because Padme feels sorry for him and even tries to help him excuse his actions.
To be angry is to be human.
Now, you'd think that after hearing a confession from Anakin that he's a mass murderer, she would say, "Hey, Anakin, I think I should go back to Naboo now. You should stay here on Tatooine, or go back to the Jedi on Coruscant. Go anywhere except Naboo. I think that's the best thing to do right now." Of course, she doesn't do that. Instead, after they're captured on Geonosis, just before they're sent out into the arena to be executed, Padme tells Anakin that she loves him.
Don't be afraid.
I'm not afraid to die. I've been dying a little bit each day since you came back into my life.
What are you talking about?
I love you.
And the reason she gives for confessing her love is that they're about to die anyway, so why not just tell him that she loves him?
I thought that we had decided not to fall in love. That we would be forced to live a lie. And that it would destroy our lives.
I think our lives are about to be destroyed anyway.
Considering that Padme has only been rejecting Anakin, and we just saw Padme feeling sorry for Anakin after Anakin lost his mother, it feels like Padme confesses her love for him simply out of pity. This romance began just fine, but became incredibly weak over the course of the film, and we can see how that happened. Fortunately, there are enough good deleted scenes to construct an alternate romance that both works and isn't creepy. So, after the alternate setup in which Padme ignores Anakin, we're now going to show how his importance to her grows. First up, after the attempt to catch the assassin, is the transport scene. Again, this is a solid scene, so we want to leave it as it is, since it shows Anakin making a bit of progress in talking with Padme, but also ends in Anakin saying something a bit awkward that pretty much halts the conversation.
You've changed so much.
You haven't changed a bit. You're exactly the way I remember you.
With their next scene, the arrival on Naboo, we want to swap in the deleted version, since it shows more of their conversation, which is picked back up. It begins with Anakin talking more about his life with the Jedi, then switches to Padme talking about her political life. The nice thing about this extended scene, though, is that Padme talks about wanting to have a life outside of politics.
I was relieved when my 2 terms were up. So were my parents. They were very worried about me during the blockade. They couldn't wait for it all to be over. Actually, I'd hoped to have a family of my own by now. My sister has the most amazing, wonderful kids.
I like this because it shows another side of her, one that is desiring an eventual romance. She's not just someone who only thinks about politics and work. She thinks about having a family someday. Of course, we get back to politics in Padme's meeting with the Queen. Again, I love this scene, which is why we're not changing it. Okay, now here's where we are making a big change. We're swapping in a deleted scene that shows Padme bringing Anakin home with her. We meet her parents and siblings, and we have this adorable scene of a couple of little girls playing with R2. It's a real tragedy that this moment was cut from the movie. It's so beautiful, and it adds some heart to the film. In terms of the romance, this scene is where we see Padme's family helping Padme to realize that Anakin has feelings for her, and maybe she feels something for him too. She's starting to see Anakin differently now. He's becoming more and more important to her on a personal level.
Why haven't you told us about him?
What's there to talk about? He's just a boy.
A boy? Have you seen the way he looks at you?
Sola, stop it.
It's obvious he has feelings for you.
Anakin and I are friends.
And we push that in their next scene in the field. They're talking and laughing and just having fun together. They enjoy being with each other, and we're showing that here. Next, we now show Anakin and Padme going to the lake. And we're going to alter this scene a bit. Rather than have Anakin kiss Padme and Padme go with it until she decides to reject him, we'll instead end the scene with Anakin kissing Padme, as if it's exactly what they both want to happen. And we're even going to slow the kiss down a bit, so we can hold on it for a little longer. It is an important kiss after all.
We would swim to that island every day. I loved the water. We used to lie out on the sand and let the sun dry us, and try to guess the names of the birds singing.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. Not like here. Here everything is soft and smooth.
We would swim to that island every day. I loved the water.
The next time we see Anakin and Padme, it'll be on the balcony the next morning, and with the previous scene ending on Anakin kissing Padme without rejection, their interaction here feels more consistent.
Don't go.
You had another nightmare last night.
Jedi don't have nightmares.
I heard you.
I saw my mother.
When we get to Tatooine, we're going to cut the entire scene in which Anakin confesses to Padme that he killed the Sand People. Is he still a mass murderer? Yes. Does he need to tell Padme? No. I feel it's better for this information to only be between Anakin and Palpatine. In terms of the overall story, it becomes useful for Palpatine since he uses this information to help him turn Anakin to the dark side. And since Padme doesn't know that Anakin is a mass murderer, it's much more believable now, after they're captured and are about to be sent out into the arena to die, for Padme to tell Anakin that she loves him.
Don't be afraid.
I'm not afraid to die. I've been dying a little bit each day since you came back into my life. I love you.
I truly, deeply love you.
Because we avoided having Padme reject Anakin twice, and because there's no opportunity for her to see him as a cold-blooded killer, it now feels as if she sees only the good side of Anakin and falls in love with that good side of Anakin. Plus, because the kiss at the lake shows their love strengthening, we now avoid her confession of love appearing as if it's out of pity. Padme's declaration of love, as well as the romance as a whole, feels more natural now. And that's all for now. Next up, I want to do a few videos on Zack Snyder's Superman trilogy, but I really want to do a video on the 2017 Power Rangers movie first.